Lars Windhorst, a wealthy businessman with 9 lives, is the focal point of this tale. Windhorst, formerly a German corporate wunderkind known as the German Bill Gates, survived a plane crash and has lost and then recovered his fortune multiple times. It also covers the story of French financial celebrity Bruno Crastis, whose investment company, H2O Asset Management, reportedly invested more than €2 billion in Windhorst's business endeavors before everything collapsed and hundreds of millions of investors' money was lost. So, let's begin today's video. H2O. A problem arose for H2O Asset Management in the summer of 2019. The company was recently asked to provide records by the UK's Financial Conduct Authority on a number of contentious investments it had made that were connected to a shady financier with a criminal history. The regulator's demand capped a torrid month for the asset manager. According to an investigation by the Financial Times, it had invested large sums of investor capital in these illiquid securities, which led nervous clients to withdraw €8 billion from the €34 billion of funds it managed. While the investor exodus had slowed, the request for evidence of H2O's research and valuation work posed a significant challenge. The firm had frequently performed little or no due diligence before purchasing the bonds and stocks, the FCA later discovered, and a valuation committee that was supposed to examine the investments had not met in months. Rather than admitting to these lax checks and balances, certain H2O personnel falsified records and even fabricated minutes of meetings that never occurred. At the same time, H2O attempted to conceal from the regulator the fact that its senior executives had been wined and dined for years by Lars Windhorst, the notorious financier behind its illiquid investments, who had treated the firm's top brass with trips around the world on his private aircraft and superyacht. When the FCA first investigated its dealings with the financier, H2O stated that it had not received any gifts or entertainment from Windhorst. The alleged cover-up came to light last week when H2O agreed to pay €250 million to investors in order to avoid a fine from the FCA, which defined its regulatory violations as extremely serious. The FCA accused H2O of attempting to conceal certain matters in order to hide the severity of its due diligence and systems and controls failings. While H2O stated that it has since overhauled its risk management and compliance teams, governance and internal procedures, the FCA's findings, as well as additional internal correspondence and other documents obtained by the FT, paint a stark picture of the lengths H2O went to conceal its risky dealings from both authorities and investors. Blurred lines. Bruno Crastis sat down for an unforgettable birthday meal on a spring day in 2018. The then 53-year-old Frenchman's daring approach to trading government bonds and currencies had made H2O, which he co-founded with funding from French bank Natixis at the start of the decade, to the position of one of Europe's most respected investing businesses. According to those familiar with what happened, Crastis spent his birthday aboard a super yacht docked in Monaco, belonging to the guy who would eventually play a role in his downfall, Windhorst. Despite a scandal-plagued career, the German financier had an unusual ability to attract wealthy investors. However, H2O provided Windhorst with extraordinary financial resources, allowing him to purchase everything from luxury lingerie maker La Perle to German football team Hertha Berlin. These difficult-to-value private debt transactions marked a significant change for H2O, whose name was linked to the liquidity and transparency it was supposed to provide clients. By the time French and British regulators restricted H2O from investing more with Windhorst in 2020, it had well over €2 billion of exposure to his businesses. Crastis' professional and personal relationships with Windhorst were growing more complex over time. In addition to his 2018 birthday lunch, Crastis travelled extensively on the financier's 240-foot-long superyacht, taking his family with him on visits to the Mediterranean and Caribbean. At the time, few people at H2O were aware of the full scope of Crastis' personal involvement with the financier, including the FCA, noting that some members of H2O's Risk and Compliance Committee had never heard of Mr. Windhorst prior to the FT's reporting. Purely business. In June 2019, the Financial Times released an investigation on the scope of H2O's illiquid investments linked to Windhorst, causing a market panic and prompting investors to withdraw billions of euros from its funds. Krastes portrayed H2O's relationship with Windhorst as purely business in video messages to customers following publication, while the firm's chief investment officer, Vincent Chaley, told investors that the firm adherence to strict internal limits on illiquid assets. While H2O's comforting statements assuaged many concerned clients, the FCA began asking for many documents from the company the next month on its due diligence and valuation procedures. While H2O's funds had multiple portfolio managers, the FCA later discovered that Krastes and Chaley made all of the decisions to invest in the Windhorst-linked transactions. Then, in the second half of 2019, H2O presented the FCA with due diligence records and other documentation that it claimed were produced when it invested. However, the FCA later revealed that all of these documents were prepared retrospectively, either directly in response to its demands or during what it referred to as a repapering exercise after the FT story. According to the FCA, these attempts were headed by an anonymous member of H2O's senior management. According to those acquainted with the situation, the executive in question was in charge of H2O's risk and compliance unit. He departed the company in 2021 after being suspended following an internal investigation into the matter. The FCA stated that there was extensive discussion at H2O regarding the retrospective creation of documents. H2O initially told the FCA in October 2019 that its gifts and entertainment register showed that nothing was given or received from entities linked to Windhorst. When the FCA asked H2O to provide details of any trips taken with Windhorst, specifically meetings on yachts, airplanes and private properties, H2O only listed business meetings, mostly in Windhorst's London offices, and 2 specific overseas trips taken by more junior staff to visit some of his companies. After a third-party examination requested by the FCA began to reveal facts about many of the visits senior workers took on board Windhorst's superyacht and private jet, the regulator instructed H2O to conduct a more targeted search. This resulted in over 50 instances of H2O employees receiving hospitality from the financier. Finally, H2O said that the lessons from the 2015 to 2019 period are fully embedded in our corporate culture and organisation. H2O requested to cancel its UK regulatory authorisation as part of its settlement with the FCA, although it will continue to keep a London office with staff in non-regulated functions. Meanwhile, Windhorst has only paid back a portion of his loans to H2O, which has substantially written down the rest.